Collectibles. They are everywhere. Shoes, cards, games, cars, hats, cups, even airsick bags. From your football fans, card connoisseurs, and gaming gurus, everyone loves a collectible. The global collectibles market is estimated to be worth $372 billion and is poised to reach $522 billion by 2028, according to HSBC Private Banking. That does include wine, whiskey, handbags, stamps, and trainers, but there is one that stands out to me, and that is described as childhood toys, or even more specifically, figures. Yes, figures. From your NFL stars to your movie idols and anime waifus, everyone and everything can be whittled down to little bits of plastic that can fit neatly on your shelf. In 2023, the action figures market size equaled $8.95 billion worldwide and is expected to hit $18.4 billion by 2032, with the top 5 countries in terms of revenue being the US, China, Brazil, United Kingdom, and France.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
According to the Polaris market research. TLDR, collectibles, people want them, and they make a lot of money. So as a savvy saver and a collectible connoisseur myself, I want to find out what is the best collectible out of these specific ones and determine which brand I should spend my hard cold cash with. To make my decision, I am basing it on a few factors. Number 1, how much is the collectible to buy initially? This doesn't include secondhand markets just because the price will wildly fluctuate from there. Number 2, how much money can I make from the collectible and do they hold their value? Number 3, how much variety do they have? I'm a man of many interests and I want to know if they have the figure of Willy when he becomes a Scottish bagpipe spider that is essentially Freddy Krueger. Oh wait, Funko does have that. Number 4, how much street credibility do they have? Look, I'm not saying that when I bring a girl back and she sees my YouTooz collection, she's going to get naked faster, but which ones are a bit more socially acceptable and you wouldn't have to hide if parents or friends came around? And finally, how well they are made, the quality, and basically, do I feel I'm getting my money's worth and do I actually want to have a collection of these figures sitting proudly on my desk? All of these will be ranked out of 10 and will be all my opinion, okay? However, I will try and give the most clear-cut answer at the end so we have a somewhat objective opinion. I will structure each collectible by giving a description of the figure, the most expensive figure, a brief history of the product company if relevant, and the first figure they ever made, finally concluding with the ranking of the actual figure. So, without further ado, let's get into what is the best collectible. Starting with the biggest honcho of the bunch, I am of course talking about the plastic giant that is Funko. Funko Pop figures. The figure's most iconic feature is obviously their oversized head, looking like Big Head mode from PS2 cheat codes.
Oh shit, here we go again.
And the simplified features drawing inspiration from the Japanese chibi art style with an American bobblehead spin on them, which allow them all, regardless of series, to blend into each other seamlessly, having enough characteristics to know the character, but enough of a base design to blend in. They usually stand around 3.5 inches and have a fair amount of weight to them. The most expensive Funko Pop is officially the Willy Wonka Golden 2-pack, with just 10 of these being made, and they were produced by Funko for the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con, making it the rarest pop ever, and in 2023, the 2-pack sold for $210,000, making it almost the most expensive Funko Pop in history. So let's find out how this massive company came to be.
What we do here is go back.
Funko was founded in 1998 by Mike Becker at his home in Snohomish, Washington. Initially producing nostalgia-themed bobbleheads known as Wacky Wobblers, the first product they ever made was the Big Boy bobblehead, which, as a non-American, all I can think of is Lard Lad from Simpsons and Big Willy from Big Willy Unleashed. Mike started the business after failing to find an affordable coin bank of the Big Boy restaurant's mascot, instead licensing the rights to make his own coin banks from the Big Boy franchise in Michigan. After this, some of the first characters that Funko sold were the Grinch, Tony the Tiger, and the Cheerios mascot, the Honeybee. In 2005, Becker sold Funko to Brian Mariotti, who moved its offices to Linwood, Washington, and significantly expanded its licensed product lines, leading to the introduction of new lines such as Fantastic Plastics and, well, I don't think I can say this one in the UK, but oh no. You may need the sense of that. The precursor for the Funko Pop vinyl was the Funko Vision figure, which was released in 2007, which you can see the inspiration for the future ventures. And low-key, I actually kind of love these more than Funkos. The little TV they stand in looks so cool, and I love they have OG Looney Tunes and Scooby-Doo figures. This could be the fact I love having my retro TV on the counter, as well as my love for old Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera cartoons. But it is a fantastic line, and I'm even tempted to purchase what
the hell
And then again, maybe not. The iconic Funko Pop vinyl figures that we know today were officially launched in 2010 at the San Diego Comic-Con. Initially titled Funko Force 2.0, the first figure was Batman from the 1960s TV series, and since then, Funko has released over 10,000 unique figures appealing to a wide range of collectors and fans of pop culture. In 2011, Funko began selling their pop vinyl line of figures officially on the market, and by 2012, the company had sold more than $20 million of merchandise. Obviously, since then, the Funko Pop brand has become a mega franchise, resulting in video games that weren't the best. And looking at the current state of Hollywood, I wouldn't be shocked to see a Funko movie in the near future. As of right now, though, the Funko brand owns nearly 13% of the total figure market, which is not surprising, but also insane with the market estimate value in 2023 being $700 million to $1 billion. And as of 2023, there are 13,741 unique pop figure characters worldwide and 150 million plus Funko Pop figures produced as of August 2023. Even more crazy though is the fact the Funko Pop secondary market is estimated to be worth just as much as the actual Funko Pop market, worth $700 million to $1 billion, as stated by former Funko CEO Andrew Perlmutter. Basically, these guys are the king of collectible plastic. So what makes people love these figures? Well, let's get to the ranking.
I'm not paying 13 quid.
Well, straight off the bat, these can range from incredibly cheap like £5, but mostly range from £10 to £20. So I'd say this is a relatively affordable collectible, and looking at stats, the average Funko Pop apparently can cost $11, which for a collectible is incredibly cheap. They also have a wide range of different figures that range from prices, so you can always get in regardless of your money. So I think that deserves at least an 8 out of 10.
I'm rich! I'm wealthy! Yahoo!
So for these, yes, there are Funko Pops out there that are worth nearly 20k, 10k, and 5k, but they're the exception, not the rule. However, from looking at the market, it does seem like quite a few of them do go above their original sale price once they stop being produced. However, some absolutely do not gain value and become bargain bin fodder. So like any speculative market, it's always a gamble, but it can definitely make money. And again, as previously mentioned, the market is worth $700 million alone. So I think it's probably safe to say these are a pretty decent investment dependent on the character. So I'm going to give that another 8 out of 10 again.
We have everything! That's why we're called the We Have Everything store!
So yes, Funko Pop has everything. I mean, just to show some of the more obscure figures, they have Lance the Knight, who is the mascot for a high school in Washington, Baby Milo, which was just a monkey from Bait, which apparently was an anime-focused clothing brand, and a Laura Palmer wrapped in plastic from Twin Peaks, or even the Geico Gecko, which got a normal and a Halloween version. Basically, if something is even mildly popular, it's probably got a Funko. They have Marvel, League of Legends, Pokemon, Slipknot, One Piece, Lionel Richie, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Shaq, etc, etc. If it's famous, it's got a Funko. Like, honestly, it's crazy to see how many and weird and wonderful figures they have. Not only that, though, they also have pop vinyls, XL pop vinyls, minifigures, bitty pops, which are these tiny, teeny Funko Pops, Blockbuster Rewind Funkos, which are VHS cassettes that have matching character cards and possible ways to get a chase version of the figure, vinyl sodas, which are slender Funko Pops in a can, all with different price ranges, so I don't really have anything else more to add. It's Funko. We know they have a lot of variety. It's got to be a 10 out of 10.
We're just normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
So obviously it's the most popular, and it's got its fans and it's got its not fans, to say the least.
Why? No! No!
It's the most recognizable and the one you've probably seen before, meaning that when you walk in and see one on your desk, I imagine most people who aren't big nerds and geeks would just be like, oh, Funko Pop, cool. And don't get me wrong, I've seen the wall of Funko Pops that people have, and they are a lot more concerning. However, I think these are one of the most socially acceptable figures to have and would still appeal to your nerdy brethren, with the worst thing being said is normie. So for that, I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. First off, let's just say they are well made. They're a good weight and they're sturdy as well. I have several Funko Pops from various series and they've all stood the test of time and survived multiple moves, so I think they're pretty damn good. And from the many I have, it's obvious I like collecting them at one point in my life. I was inclined to collect as many as I could from my favorite IPs, but interest slowly waned over time, and now I mostly get them from friends or get specific ones I really like the recent ones like Shaun of the Dead and the Things from the recent Funko Fusion game. Overall, I will give this a solid 8 out of 10 because although although I love them, they don't light the same flame in my heart as they used to. So 8 out of 10 I think is a fair score. That gives the Funko Pops a rating of 42 out of 50. So yeah, there's a reason that Funko owns 13% of the market, because this big head, beady-eyed bastards are just too goddamn lovable. Now, let's go across the globe to Japan and look at the interchangeable figures that are Nendoroids. Nendoroids. These figures are known for their chibi style design, featuring exaggerated facial expressions and interchangeable parts, including faceplates and body parts which are swappable, making it easy to create all kinds of poses and looks. Nendoroids are around 10 centimeters in size, based on characters from different animes, games, and even more. Most expensive figure is most likely the Hatsune Miku GSC version, as only one was ever made. However, it is currently priceless due to the fact it's never been sold. An alternative though is the armored UK Mark II Nendoroid, which was sold for $1,130.04 at a charity auction.
What we do here is go back.
Nendoroid figures were produced by the Japanese company Good Smile and were first released in 2006. The original creator was Tsuyoshi Oda, known as Oda P. However, the series is now worked on by a number of people who work under the collective name Nendoron. The name Nendoroid likely comes from Nendo, Japanese for clay, and roid, possibly referencing android or humanoid. It may also be derived from the nickname of the creative group Nendoron. The first Nendoroid was a cat-like monster named Neko Art from the Tsukahime game?
Downtown, walking fast, faces fast, and I'm longbow.
Which was released at Wonder Festival 2006. The 100th Nendoroid was released by July 2010, and in May 2013, the 300th Nendoroid was made, Hatsune Miku 2.0. As of 2022, over 21 million Nendoroids have been shipped globally, and over 1,500 plus Nendoroids now exist as of 2024. Nendoroid have gained immense popularity among anime and manga fans, with figures based on popular characters from series like Naruto, Attack on Titan, and My Hero Academia. The line has expanded to include characters from video games and Western franchises, making Nendoroids a versatile, collectible option for fans of various genres. So now we know a bit more about them, let's get into the ranking.
I'll never forgive the Japanese!
Nendoroids have no set price, but as of 2022, the average is between 4,000 and 8,000 Japanese yen. However, in the UK, they can be hella pricey and are probably the most expensive figures that we're covering today. So even though I think this collectible is low-key worth the entry price, with its interchangeable parts and faces, I do think it's a little too pricey for a minifigure, especially compared to the other price on this list. So all of that considered, I think it deserves a 4 out of 10 in terms of price.
How much money did you spend on 2D waifus?
We've mentioned the armored UK Mark II that sold for $1,130. However, that was to raise funds for the relief efforts following the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Looking online, there are quite a few Nendoroids you can see gain a lot of value, especially ones from the Fire Emblem series of Nendoroids that can go between £130 to $250. So I think all of that considered, it deserves an 8 out of 10.
To say thank you for all the things we love from Japan. Like anime.
In terms of variety, you're really struggling to find anything that's not anime and manga inspired with these ones, as they primarily targeted at a Japanese otaku market. They do have a variety of franchises from the section, but in general, nothing that's really shipped out of Japan, with the most Western ones being very popular franchises like The Amazing Digital Circus, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Alien. They do have a variety of figures though, including the Nendoroid doll. It's the same Nendoroid head, but it has like a doll-like body that can be easily dressed up into different outfits. A sitting Nendoroid, adorable Nendoroids in a sitting pose, complete with chair. So yeah, the noodle toppers you can win in various arcade machines. Nendoroid More, alternative outfits with extra parts and even clips and suction stands. And then Nendoroid Plus, which is stuff like keychains, stuffed toys, and more featuring your favorite Nendoroids. All of this considered, does just have a Japanese otaku market target. I do think it deserves a 7 out of 10 for the variety of figures they offer and the fact they do have a few Western franchises thrown in there.
It turns out that you were cringe.
In terms of fans, the Nendoroids seem to have a more dedicated fan base than some of the other ones we've mentioned, with their fans proudly displaying them. Along with the nerdy community at large not really having a thing against these interchangeable figures, I think these are actually pretty well respected. However, because of their focus on Japanese characters, I think friends and family will not recognize them as much, especially when you see 20 Sailor Moons while still not having a girlfriend. I got you, homies. Relationship trick? Stick with plastic. Overall, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
Nice. Very nice, Shiza-chan.
So, unfortunately, this is one of the figures I don't have one of, so I'll have to take people's opinion online about how well made they are. Looking at what people say though, it seems that like quite a few people love this series of figures, and its interchangeable parts and posable actions are really well made and they'd stand the test of time. So maybe the price is worth it. And after doing a bit of research for this video as well, I did find myself being intrigued by a few of the figures. So overall, I am going to give this a 9 out of 10. The Nendoroid series gets a rating of 35 out of 50, with its only egregious feature being the price of the Nendoroid. However, if you can find one of these lovely figures on the cheap, I think these would be a wonderful addition to any nerdy collection. Moving on though, let's look at the biggest toy franchise in the world. That's right, I'm talking about Lego. The iconic blocky boys don't need much of an explanation, as they are just that iconic. The heads usually have a simple facial expression, traditionally represented by two solid black dots staring into the endless void for eyes, and a smile that hides the true terror behind those eyes. Initially, the iconic minifigure came fully assembled, however later in the company's history, Lego decided to let children assemble the figure themselves. Now, today's minifigure consists of 9 main parts, 7 which are movable, and they are made from ABS plastic, which I'm going to attempt to pronounce now. Acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. For durability, the height of a typical minifigure is 4 centimeters or 1.6 inches, meaning they are the smallest out of the collectibles we've covered today. Perfect for those collectors who have minimal space. The most expensive Lego minifigure you can find is the 14K gold C-3PO, as only 2 were ever made for a Star Wars 30th anniversary contest, making it extremely rare. Price is estimated at $65,000 or $200,000, with the latest one apparently selling for $65,100 in 2019, according to this Reddit post. Let's go into the history of Lego.
What we do here is go back.
So obviously Lego, you've most likely heard of them. They have movies, games, entire theme parks. So yes, spoiler alert for this one, it's going to do well in the rankings because like Funko, there's a reason they're so popular. Founded in 1932 in Denmark, it began as a wooden toy company and transitioned to plastic building bricks in 1949. The iconic interlocking brick design was painted in 1958, leading to the creation of theme set and minifigures. The idea for Lego minifigures originated in 1975. Nygaard Numsden created around 50 different prototypes. The first attempt was a figure with 4 molded pieces, standing 4 Lego bricks high. The first Lego set to include a minifigure was released in 1978. Set number 600 featured a policeman in his patrol car. This marked the birth of Lego minifigures as we know it today. The first female minifigure was a nurse, and it was introduced 2 months later after the policeman, and early occupations for these minifigures included policemen, firemen, doctors, nurses, and spacemen. Basically, anything Johnny Sims is known to have a career in. Don't Google that. Lego then followed a strict rule of not producing soldiers or war-related figures. However, I feel they've been a little more lenient in recent times, as you can still get stormtroopers and other fantasy soldiers. However, if you really need your blocky army men, you can get a Sluban M38-B0855 to recreate those blocky army fantasies. Lego has since then created minifigures for various themes and licensed properties, and in 2010, Lego introduced the collectible minifigure series, further popularizing the concept, and since then, they've done 26 series, not including the more specific ones like Batman, Looney Tunes, the Muppets, etc, etc. The Lego minifigure has become an iconic part of the Lego brand, evolving from such a simple concept to a highly detailed and collectible item over the past 4 decades. Obviously, Lego's collaborated with numerous franchises, as we mentioned, including Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Marvel, resulting in a vast array of collectible sets, and Lego has become a cultural icon, many collectors valuing retired sets that can appreciate significantly over time. As of 2023, the Lego company was valued at around $13 billion, meaning Lego is the world's largest toy maker, and in 2023, the company's revenue was 65.9 billion Danish krone, which is around $9.65 billion. So yeah, there'd be gold in them there bricks. So let's get to the ranking of these bad boys, starting with In general, they are the cheapest to buy individually, starting as low as £3.49 for a single minifigure. However, if you want specific figures, you'll most likely have to dole out a lot more, as some of them are tied to specific sets and you can't get them individually. However, they do have a lot of great entry prices for kids especially, and when you buy the set, you do get a lot of stuff included. So I'm actually going to give this as 8 out of 10, as it's still pricey to get certain ones, but you can just get into the actual stuff relatively cheaply.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
So again, these can vary wildly, but because of the big brand names and the fact they retire sets, that means quite a few of these Lego sets can go up immensely in value. Like the Lego Movie 2 Welcome to the Apocalypseburg set, which originally was worth £259, but now goes for around £900 and has figures that are worth around £250 and £350. Or the Stranger Things The Upside Down set, which has a Demogorgon figure, which is now worth around £90, which is half the price of the original set itself. So in terms of value, I think these are the ones that will retain it the most. As you can see from examples that they really do just hold their value and the resale can go exponentially up. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. They have everything from D&D to Wednesday to The Office to Star Wars, and obviously the homegrown brands like the Spacemen, the Builders, the Cops, etc, etc. So in terms of varieties, yes, they have a lot. And additionally, they have loads of other figures like the weird brick heads, which to me is like the sad hamster version of every character. And they even have artwork, which I know isn't figures, but a lot of this stuff is actually just insane when you look at it. And yeah, I think overall you can get a lot of variety from Lego because it's literally building bricks and blocks and you can design your own minifigure. So I think I'm gonna have to give this another 10 out of 10 for that variety alone.
This heavy brick is gonna stick.
So I feel like these are by far the most socially acceptable collectible people to have. I mean, sure, there's still geeky and nerdy, but hell, even Spider-Man in the MCU was shown with a Lego Death Star. Additionally, with the previously mentioned art line and the fact you can build entire sets and displays that, let's be honest, do look incredible and create entire worlds out of these small bricks. I mean, there's a reason why there's a place that is literally called Legoland. It's because these people are so goddamn bricked up to see this place.
Well, aren't you proud of yourself?
The Lego brand in general quickly turns collectibles into, well, just art. So again, for this, I think it deserves another 9 out of 10, as I know it still has that nerdy connotation with it, but I think people just know what Lego is. So yeah, 9 out of 10.
I love my break.
So as a kid, I never actually really got into Lego, and as an adult, I've only ever dipped my toes in as recently as this year, getting the Dark Millennium Falcon from the Lego shop, as everyone wants a bit of Darth Jar Jar in their life. Apart from that though, what else can I say about Lego? They're obviously very well made, it's great quality. The only thing I need to ask myself is, would I collect them? And honestly, I'm a bit undecided. They're great, but there's just something about it that I'm not fully on board with, and I would rather have some other collectibles on this list that I've mentioned so far, and some that I've not even mentioned yet. I think a fair assumption for me would be a 7 out of 10, which is wild because they've essentially nailed everything else, but maybe I'm just too much of an indie kid at heart. Overall, the Lego brand has comfortably earned an amazing 45 out of 50, which I don't think anyone is surprised by, as well, it's Lego. It's a reason it's the top dog. Now, let's look at one of Lego's oldest competitors and stay in Europe with Playmobil. He really does yammer on, doesn't he? Sorry to interrupt you all. I hope you're enjoying the video. I was just dropping in just to see if you were liking the video, if you could drop me a like and a subscribe at the bottom. That'd be wonderful. Also, I recorded the audio at the end at a different time and it might sound a bit different. Sorry I can't fix it that well, but just letting you guys know. Anyway, back to the video. Thanks everyone. Remember, subscribe and like. Beautiful people. Thank you very much. Bye. So, Playmobil figures are iconic toys that stand about 7.5 centimeters or 3 inches tall. Designed at a 1/24 scale, they feature a distinctive smiling face characterized by a large head and no nose, which is reminiscent of a children's drawing. Playmobil say the design encourages imaginative play, allowing children to create various scenarios with the figures. Most figures are actually unnamed, giving children the freedom to invent their own stories and characters. And the figures come with various accessories and outfits, allowing for customization based on different themes such as pirates, knights, or your everyday heroes. The most expensive Playmobil figure, according to Google and AI, is the Ghostbuster figure. This collectible was released to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Ghostbusters franchise, and the internet tells me that this figure could fetch up to £1,000 or more, depending on its condition and packaging. However, I did manage to look on eBay and found these for about £140 for the entire set, so maybe it's gone down in price since then, or maybe AI is shit. It's probably the latter.
What we do here is go back.
So Playmobil has always been one of them brands like Mega Bloks, Fisher-Price and K'NEX that have always been second place behind Lego and its toy lines. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And it was invented by Hans Beck in the early 1970s. Playmobil was developed to strike a balance between flexibility and simplicity in design, with Beck aiming to create a toy that would not overwhelm children while still sparking their creativity. With Playmobil being based in Europe, they are owned by the Horst Brandstatter Group, which actually shockingly sell only two things: Playmobiles and planters, which I think is an interesting portfolio to say the least. But it must be working somewhat, as Playmobil began to be sold worldwide in 1975, and by 2009, approximately 2.2 billion Playmobil figures have been sold, and today it's still selling a wide variety of sets. However, I do want to mention that in 2022-2023, the Horst Brandstatter Group sales fell to 571 million euros, and the year afterwards, sales amounted to 490 million euros, meaning that the company is struggling a bit more as time goes on. The first Playmobil sets were themed around Native Americans, construction workers, and knights. From there, they've expanded to have created more than 3,995 different people figures and introduced 149 Playmobil animal species. The fastest selling Playmobil character was a figure of the 16th century Protestant reformer Martin Luther figure, which was actually released in February 2015, and apparently 34,000 units were sold out within 72 hours, and an average 472.2 figures per hour. So with that ridiculous stat, let's get into the ranking.
I'd buy that for $1.
So in terms of the actual figures, they are the cheapest one that we'll find on this list today at £2.49 per figure. However, if you want a known character brand figure, you'll probably have to pay around £7 to £8, which, after looking just at the Lego figures, which are about half that price, I feel as if the value is diminished by the fact I could get two cool D&D characters for the price of one Naruto character. And even if we include the playsets, they are lovely, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't seem as bombastic and exciting as the Lego ones. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because it's not that any of this stuff isn't terrible bang for your buck, it's just compared to Lego, it feels that you can do better.
Whoa! This is worthless.
So the speculative market for Playmobil seems incredibly low, and after looking at the market, it doesn't seem to be that rare of figures sell that well. I have mentioned the Ghostbusters one, but even then, it doesn't seem to have gone that much up in price compared to some of the other figures you'll see from Lego and Funko Pop and other ones we'll cover. As even original figures that came out in the 1975 don't seem to sell that much from their original value. Doing some further research by myself, I found a guy called Burton Scrad on Reddit that basically said Playmobil just released the same thing over and over and over again. There are no limited drops and they won't get vaulted like what Lego and Disney do, and so this means that their value will never really go up as it will always just be replaced. And the second reason being that Playmobil switched from set-based castles to System X. This means that what you have in the box is basically what you have. You can't use the pieces randomly in other set. All this considered, I think I'm gonna have to give this a 2 out of 10, as I think none of this stuff really gains value, and if it does, it feels like it mostly pennies on the pound instead of a once of cash.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
So these guys have significantly less collabs than those of Lego and Funko, let's just say. But they still have Scooby-Doo, Naruto, Back to the Future, so there's some collaborations with bigger brands there. But yeah, in general, not that many. And obviously they still have the original brands like the Knights, Campers, Vikings, Pirates, etc. However, compared with the rest, it just seems very average. So I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10 for just above average.
Goo goo gaga, I want milk.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anyone in real life who collects Playmobil. Even as a kid, I didn't know anyone who really had Playmobil. And I think unfortunately, it never got quite the same recognition and appreciation by an older community like Lego has. Possibly because they come pre-assembled, which is great for kids. And the fact that designs are so simple in nature really do just appeal to that kid market. And hey, that's a fine market to be in. Kids love spending their parents' money, but I think as someone who wants to be more of a collector than a natural kid who just likes playing with toys, I think I'm gonna have to give this a 2 out of 10 on the street rating, because I think if you had a collection of Playmobil figures, people most likely think you're a serial killer.
It's true, but he shouldn't say it.
All of this just works.
So, in terms of the quality, I can't fault them at all. With 50 years experience, they've nailed the design of what a Playmobil looks like, and as much as I've kind of shit on them a little during this review, I think you can still recognize a Playmobil figure instantly, which is a credit to the design. However, do I like the look of this? No, sorry, not really. I think it's just too basic for me, and I think it is a kid's toy at the end of the day, and yeah, it's just not for me. So, I think that's going to give Playmobil a 5 out of 10. So, overall, the previous Lego competitor gets a ranking of 23 out of 50, which is just below average, which is a shame for such an iconic brand. I also don't think it belongs in the same category as Lego, because not to be offensive to any collectors of Playmobil figures out there, but they seem like they're just too much design for kids and toddlers. So all of that considered, let's move on to another brand. YouTooz figures are characterized by their stylized, cartoonish aesthetic, usually having a very happy expression with semicircle closed eyes as their iconic feature. Each figure typically features exaggerated proportions and vibrant colors, capturing the essence of the character they represent. Design philosophy leans heavily into a playful and whimsical interpretation, often emphasizing unique traits or iconic elements associated with their characters. The most expensive one sold was the 2-foot Pepe, which the last sale was apparently £2,406 according to StockX. And from what I can see, the most expensive figure that's not a large one was the Purple Neeb gaming figure. I have no idea who that is, sorry, but if you do own it, congrats on that money.
What we do here is go back.
YouTooz is a relatively new collectible brand founded in 2020, focusing on figures based on internet personalities and content creators, which has now spread out into more recognizable pop culture brands. YouTooz was co-founded by Austin Littman, Austin Long, and Mark Procadine in 2019. The company's first released figure was Dead Meme, which was based on, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Ugandan Knuckles.
You don't know the way.
Yes, I
Do you know the way?
I know the way.
You have to have Ebola to know the way.
Which was released on the 29th of April 2019. And honestly, just what a start. The year after the company launched over 200 figures and sold over 500,000 individual figurines in 2020. YouTooz most recently reported revenue was $30 million in 2021, and at that point had released almost 400 new designs. YouTooz follows a one-drop policy, meaning their figures will never be restocked. This is to create a sense of rarity in the products and to encourage a collection of said products. To date, there has only been one exception to this rule, the YouTooz Austin figure, due to stock being bought out by bots rather than actual people. This, on top of the fact they have now chase versions of certain figures, meaning you could get a rarer version of the figure you bought, obviously increasing the resale value of these figures. While still in its infancy, YouTooz has released a variety of figures that have become popular among collectors, and in September 2023, YouTooz actually secured a significant funding from Decathlon Capital Partners, paving the way for its growth, so it wouldn't shock me if we were to see YouTooz said in the same breath as Funko, Lego, and Nendoroid in the coming years.
Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so.
So straight off, these are pricier than your Funko Pops and Q-Poskets, but don't quite go into the Nendoroid figure territory. They're about $29.99 US, and if you're looking in the UK, they can range from about £30 to £15 depending on the figure. However well made they are though, and I am a big fan of them, I still think it is too pricey at £30, with 20 to 15 being the sweet spot I would be more willing to pay for them. But all that considered, I think it deserves a 6 out of 10.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Although new, these collectibles have already found a thriving secondhand market due to the fact that YouTooz has their one-drop policy and the fact they have these chase versions, giving them the same artificial scarcity and FOMO that Lego has. This creates a very lucrative secondhand market, so in terms of future values, these definitely have potential to increase. Even though it's still a speculative market, I think these are a pretty decent investment. And for that, I think it's a pretty fair 8 out of 10.
Are you a YouTuber?
I am.
So right off the bat, YouTooz has an incredible variety of franchises and figures. They also have unique items and poses. While not being posable like minifigs or Nendoroids, they have dynamic poses that make them very animated, such as the battle-torn Omni-Man, Marvel Tales #1 Symbiote Spider-Man, which both showcase the respective characteristics from these iconic moments while maintaining the character's look and appeal. Not only that though, they have plushies which are fantastic. I have one myself of Muriel, Pastor of Vows, Elden Ring, and it is incredibly well made. Finally, I have to mention how many meme and unique characters the YouTooz have. Did I think we would have Bubble Bass from SpongeBob as a plush, the Stonks meme in several different versions, or the specific pose of Ghostface chilling in the lounging chair? No. And I'm so happy these niches but memeable moments have an opportunity to be immortalized in the real world. And overall, I think I can't not give YouTooz a 10 out of 10 for this. As they have such a variety, it's hard not to be impressed. And the fact they give so many different small creators an opportunity to have a bit of merchandise, it's really cool.
How do you do, fellow kids?
So right now, it's hard to tell as they're relatively new products and they're appealing to a younger audience. One who's grown up with these influencers and brands and memes, etc. I imagine some people in the future will probably pass them off as the same as what a Funko Pop is now. And the fact they have these new bigger franchises coming in, I think means even friends and family could recognize them. So in summary, I'm actually going to give this a 9 out of 10. I guess they are just pretty skibbity toilet.
Will it blend? That is the question.
So these are incredibly solid figures, and I really like them. Maybe it's because they're the new kid on the block and a bit of the underdog, but I love the stylistic choices they made for the franchises, and I really love the fact that YouTubers and smaller indie people get a chance to have a really cool piece of merchandise, as previously mentioned. That, on top of the variety they offer, and the fact they are getting bigger and bigger, I think means for me, I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10. Overall, I think the YouTooz franchise deserves a very well-earned 42 out of 50. If they could reduce the price of their figures, I think this could just be as big as Lego and Funko Pops. But for such a small company, they still have a long future ahead, and I'll be happy to see what happens to this fun brand. Next, we have a franchise which seems to be both alive and dead at the same time. So let's look at the zombie franchise that is Q-Figs. These figures were known for their dynamic poses and attention to detail, often depicting characters from popular franchises like Marvel and DC in action poses to give the figure a bit more animation. Q-Figs were designed with a whimsical flair similar to other minifigs we've seen on this list. So again, like other brands, because of the lack of information, the most expensive Q-Fig seems to be the Batman Family Limited Edition Q-Master Diorama, which gets around $200 average price. However, it did sell originally for $200, so yeah, it's managed to keep its value somewhat, but I think that's not a great thing for a resale market. Apart from that though, I honestly don't have much to talk about with these, so let's get into the history.
What we do here is go back.
You'll probably recognize these if you were a fan of loot boxes back in the day, as I'm pretty sure these were put in most loot boxes between 2015 and 16. Q-Figs were produced by Quantum Mechanics and were first introduced in 2015, and Quantum Mechanics was a Los Angeles-based creative studio and developer of screen-accurate replicas, collectibles, artwork inspired by the entertainment's most beloved shows and movies. Doing research, I'm not 100% sure they are still in business, as looking at their website, they still have pre-orders up for their figures. However, when you try to go to their social media account, including Google+, which is not a good sign at all, it doesn't seem to go anything apart from back to the homepage, and further research shows they got bought out by a bigger company. The first Q-Fig seems to be either Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, or Deadpool, which was a Loot Crate exclusive in 2015. And to be honest with you, I think that's why I own the two that I do, and I'm going to assume a lot of these initial figures were in Loot Crates, and they were hoping that people would start buying them after they get a taste, and wanted to add more to the collection. However, as we've seen from the current states of the website, I don't think this method seems to work out at all. So how much is this to buy?
$5? Get out of here.
So now these things are still around 10 or 15 pounds, and I've even seen some as low as 5 pounds. And even the more elaborate figures that we saw that used to probably be around 70 pounds are now 18 pounds. So that considered, if you're a bit of a savvy saver collector, I generally think this is a great way to have a detailed figure for a low price. So I think this is going to be the highest score they get, but 9 out of 10. Well done Q-Figs for being cheap and forgotten about.
Oh god, that is
As previously discussed, I I think this is a terrible investment choice in all honesty. And the company seems to have stopped producing these things since 2021. And it's now zombie state of whether they're not going to make any more in the future. I don't even think the fact that they might not exist anymore is going to add any more value. There are some that seem to be hitting that upper echelon about 70 to 100 pounds. But honestly, I think these are going to be left to the annals of history sooner rather than later. And all that considered, I think it's a 1 out of 10 in terms of investment value because these aren't going to get your money back. But I'm more than happy for history to prove me wrong.
We have a Hulk.
How much variety do they have? Well, on initial look, they seem to produce pretty much nothing apart from DC, Marvel, and Harry Potter. However, after a few more searches, I did find some other niche stuff like Big Trouble in Little Chinatown and Gargoyles from Disney, but they're a lot more far and few between the massive amount of comic book characters, and for that, I think it deserves a 3 out of 10 for less than average variety.
Loser! You're a loser!
So, this just seems like a 1 out of 10. I know I'm being mean, but I think there is no one that cares for these things, regardless of nerd or non-nerd. They just don't seem to inspire that much love from people, which is a shame because like I've said, they're not terrible and they have a great price associated with them now. Something about them just doesn't seem to appeal, which is kind of sad, but yeah, there's maybe a reason these guys are out of business. Sorry, quantum mechanics.
The diamond in the rough.
Finally, how well made they are, their quality, and do I actually like the look? So these are actually fairly well made. They're quite light for the size, but I do think the rest of the design makes up for the lightness. I do actually like the fact the characters are in actionable poses, as it sells a lot more of what the character is and what they're doing. Although I do appreciate these will be harder to put together as they don't match up with each other's aesthetically as much as other stuff we've seen on this list. All of that considered, I don't mind them. I actually feel kind of bad for these guys. They got shut down because they're nice enough to look at, but obviously they just never caught on, and all that, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Overall, the Q-Fig line of figures gets 20 out of 50, being heavily let down by its street cred and investment value. I do think these are a perfect figure for anyone who just wants to start collecting right now, doesn't have the money to do it. However, I can't see anyone else spending their cold hard cash on these figures. So sorry, Q-Figs, I think you're just not that great. Now, we've discussed the US, Japan, and even Europe, but we've still not gone to my home country, that is the UK. So let's look at their contribution next with the figures Tubbz. So Tubbz are basically rubber duckies. Each Tubbz figure is approximately 3.5 inches tall, and each Tubbz figure comes in a distinctive bathtub display box which features theme graphics relevant to the character or franchise it's coming from. However, only the first edition released in bathtubs. After that, it's a generic box, giving the figures an added sense of artificial scarcity like Lego and YouTooz. The most expensive one seems to be the original Resident Evil 2 first edition Leon from RE2, which sells for around £150. So let's go into the history of this one.
What we do here is go back.
It's a mostly UK-based brand, and I've got it on here because one, it's based on rubber ducks, and as you can tell from my thumbnails, my model, and everything else related to me, I kind of love ducks. And number two, we've not had a UK-based collectible yet, and I think our little island needs a bit of representation. And what's more British than a duck?
I just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole! Birmingham is a fucking shithole!
Tubbz, the cosplaying duck collectibles, were created by Numbskull Designs, a British company based in Hertfordshire, and has added their unique take by having their iconic rubber duck in different poses, outfits from famous brands. Carl Miezen, creative director at Numbskull Designs, discussed the idea for Tubbz originated in 2019 when a friend of the company received a low-quality, unlicensed rubber duck based on a famous character. A quote from Carl himself: "The idea of Tubbz came to us by total chance. Our friend was gifted a novelty rubber duck based on the famous crime-fighting billionaire, completely unlicensed and of poor quality. Our initial reaction was, we could do better than that, and after some research we decided to give the rubber duck some numbskull treatment. We took some time to work on a base duck, we called this the Naked Duck, and once we were happy we began an experiment with our favourite characters. Tubbz at this point was called Tubbies, as in bathtub buddies. Yes, we're glad it didn't stick either. And researching the first ever Tubbz, it seems it was just a normal rubber duck, as it's based on the 5-year anniversary splash, but having a look at their first ever trailer release, it seems the original first series of Tubbz included Borderlands, Spyro, Fallout, Destiny, Crash Bandicoot, Skyrim, Street Fighter, Lord of the Rings, Batman, and the Ghostbusters, and it seems to have launched on August 15th, 2019. Enough backstory, let's get to the ducking truth and rank these bath buddies.
So they walked to the store and the man bought some duck.
So these are a lot more pricey compared to their counterparts, and the average new Tubbz figure will cost you around 20 quid, $24.99 or €24.99. $6.99. So in terms of price, they are a lot more expensive, and for that alone, I think I'm gonna have to mark it down a 6 out of 10, because honestly, these things shouldn't be more than £15. With some of the older ones getting around to that figure, which I'd be more than likely to actually purchase, I will say the mini version is $6.99 for those wanting to get a cheaper alternative into collecting them. However, I still think 6 out of 10 is the best score for this one.
Money's got to circulate.
In terms of collection growing, they seem to have varying success, with the most expensive set being the Resident Evil ducks, as Leon seems to sell for at least £150. And although these figures aren't hitting the mad figures that I found in Funko, Lego, and Nendoroid, I still think the more this brand sticks around, the more they'll go up. So for that, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for the fact that they can get in triple-digit prices, but right now, nothing as crazy as some of the other big names on the list.
Look at all those chickens.
For a tiny company compared to those of Lego, Funko, and YouTooz, the Tubbz filled rubber ducks have a surprising amount of collaborations with other brands. They have mega names from iconic video games like Sonic the Hedgehog and Resident Evil, to famous film personalities like Batman and Ghostbusters, as well as more niche franchises like Dirty Dancing with watermelon scent included, and Cody Fry, the American singer-songwriter. Yeah, even I was confused by that one. This, as well as mini Tubbz, giant Tubbz, and plushies, including, oh my god, look at the Resident Evil tofu Tubbz plushie. Is that not just the best thing ever? I mean, look at it. It's fan-bloody-tastic. And they even have a small collection of DIY Tubbz as well, so you can choose which shade of Batman or Joker suits your style. For the pure size of this company, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 because it does have a nice variety of figures and even more options to purchase into it.
I slammed my in the car door.
Look, I'm not going to lie, as much as I love these to bits, and I think they're iconic, they have zero street credibility outside the UK. I think they're very cool, don't get me wrong, and to be honest with you, I think even more general people would recognize them as it's the iconic rubber duck, but they'd also be like, well, why does it look like Shaun from Shaun of the Dead with receding hairline? And at that point, I think you've already lost a lot of people. I don't know, I'm very middle of the road with this one, but maybe it's best just to give it a 6 out of 10 and move on.
All right, I will buy it. It'll be good for the economy.
Finally, how well made are they and their quality? So these are made with fantastic quality, and obviously you can see from me talking about them how much I just love this brand and figures. The looks on the ducks' faces are just fantastic. The poses, the franchises they have, I love it all. Yes, the price is a little too expensive, and I don't think it's got as much variety as the rest that we've seen on this list, but damn it, they are the little collectible that could, and for me, I'm going to have to give this a 10 out of 10 because I love the ducks that much. They're just great. Overall, Tubbz gets a ranking of 37 out of 50, and for such a small brand compared to the big dogs, I think that is a pretty good score to have. I know, bias, etc. But yeah, it's my list, and I love these Tubby ducks. Wait, Tub? T-U-B? The ugly bartender? SH Figuarts minis are palm-sized, super deformed, chibi-fied versions of popular anime, manga, and game characters from Bandai Namco. Special hallmark feature of the Figuarts minis is that they have brightly coloured, glittering eyes, according to the company. The eyes are not directly printed onto the faceplates, but are instead separate parts inserted from the back of the faceplate, which Figuarts Mini, in their words, say gives a more 3D feel to their eyes. They are actually posable as well, like Nendoroid, with a connected little clear arm on the back, which obviously for a small figure like this is a great addition. But it does come off as a knockoff Nendoroid, which looking at their figures, they definitely do it better. In terms of most expensive, I've generally struggled to find anything here concrete, so I'm gonna have to use my bias unfortunately, and assume the one that I found online was the most expensive one, which was Melania, Blade of Mikola.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
Yeah, I know.
Which I usually see on sale for around £140, £150. Sorry I couldn't find anything more concrete, but that's the best I've got.
What we do here is go back.
SH Figuarts is a popular line of highly articulated action figures produced by Bandai Tamashii Nations, a division of Bandai. SH Figuarts was launched in 2008 by Bandai as a line of high-quality figures aimed at collectors aged 15 and older. The line was created to fill the market demand for more sophisticated action figures for adult collectors. SH Figuarts was considered a sister brand to the earlier Suchaku Henshin series, which ran from 2000 to 2009. The first SH Figuarts release was figures from the Kamen Rider The Next film that released in February 2008. The SH of SH Figuarts stands for Simple Style and Heroic Action, while Figuarts is a combination of figure and arts. Specifically though, of these figures, I want to talk about the SH Figuarts Minis, which is a relatively young line from Bandai Tamashii Nations. However, when looking for where these figures came from and when they launched, nowhere on the internet could I find this. I went to Japan sites and I couldn't read a word of it, but even Google Translate told me you're essentially screwed. So I dug more and more and more, and I realized how incredibly dumb I am, as they have pissing numbers on the box that show which one they are in the series. And after a quick Google search, I found out that the first ever one was released was a Sailor Moon figure. Long story short, I managed to find collector.com, and they clarified it was December 2019 when the figure released. And honestly, after doing all of that, I need to lie down. But before that, let's get into the ranking.
Can we get much higher? So high.
So these figures can start from around £20 to £25, and for that, you do get a very nice detailed figure. However, when they say mini, they mean mini. These figs are tiny compared with other figures we've reviewed so far on the list. However, they are posable, and they are an accurate mini version of the character with its own unique chibi style. So overall, I'm going to give these an 8 out of 10.
Praise the Elden Ring.
These being so new haven't really got the mega prices that you'll see in other giants that we've looked at. However, as previously mentioned, from personal experience, I've seen a lot shoot up already, including Melania, Blade of Mikola, which we've already mentioned can go between 140 to 150 quid, and the Blyad minifigure, which is now around £75, and also even more recently, the Rani figure, people have already been selling for about £70 plus.
With her 4 arms, think of all the things that she can do to it. Your tarnished tackle.
So yes, as long as it's Elden Ring, apparently these things will sell like hotcakes. It's nice that some of these figures are getting about 5 times or 7 times worth of value, but it's still only really linked to Elden Ring, so I can't really give it more than a 6 out of 10.
Curse you!
Elden Ring.
In terms of variety, it's currently very low. Due to its newness and the fact it's only Bandai Namco brands has severely limited the options that you can get from this franchise, especially as most of it is going to be Japanese based. However, that doesn't mean that they won't add more unique franchises in the future, and with Bandai Namco, I'm sure they're going to add a Pac-Man or a Little Nightmares figure eventually. So I'll give this a 4 out of 10 for having enough variety from Bandai Namco's brands, but nothing really else apart from that.
Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
It's hard to say with this one, really. I looked online and not many people talk about these figures, so I imagine they've not got as much of a fan base as some of the others we've seen on this list. That, with again the fact that they're limited to the Bandai Namco franchises, if you're not a Bandai Namco fan, I really don't see anyone else either knowing about these or getting into these figures. Luckily, Bandai does have obviously Elden Ring and Dragon Ball to help support this, but I don't think you're going to get much recognition of people, and they're just going to be like, oh, what's that random figure, rather than saying, oh, that's an SH figure art mini, if you get what I mean. So for that, I think unfortunately it's going to be a 3 out of 10.
Having these makes me feel something that resembles joy, I think. I want to caress them.
I think these are very, very cute, and they managed to keep a lot of the character's charm and appeal, but just shrink it down to its teeny tiny best bits. The heads aren't too big, and the body matches well. I also like that they have postable features, which makes it more dynamic than the other figures we've mentioned. So I like this one, and I think it would be great to see more figures come out in the future. So I'd say a 7 out of 10. Overall, the SH Mini Figure Art series gets a 28 out of 50, which, for a relatively new brand, I think is a very decent score. And I wouldn't be surprised if this franchise gains more traction in the future, with the fact that Bandai Namco has again franchises that are getting more and more popular, and hopefully they'll outreach into more general franchises so they can get a wider audience. But we'll have to wait and see. And that's it for collectibles. We've gone through them all now. Let's get to the conclusion. So we've seen them all, they've showed us their stuff, and we are now ready to put them in the ranking that they deserve. So without further ado, let's discuss dead last with Q-Fig. Yes, with Q-Fig comes in dead last with 21 out of 50, and for the brand that no longer exists, this feels like a fair placement, with its only redeeming factor being its low price and the decent quality build. Second to last, we had Playmobil that got a score of 23 out of 50. Being let down by its adult offerings, its lack of limited sets and collabs, meaning they lost major points for variety, resale value, and street cred. Still though, it's not last place, so take that as you can, Playmobil. SH Mini Figuarts were next with 28 out of 50. It didn't do much wrong, but the very limited variety due to being owned by Bandai and the newness of the brand meant variety and street cred just wasn't there. And above that, we had another Japanese franchise with Nendoroids, which got 35 out of 50. The only thing letting these bad boys down for me really was the price, which if they dropped just a little more, I think they could have comfortably been in the top 3 or maybe even second place. But alas, price and personal bias places it at number 5, which after reviewing this video multiple times, I think is a bit of a cruel pace to put it, but number 5 has to be someone, and for us, it was Nendoroid. Coming in at 4th and midway in the table, we had Tubbz with 37 out of 50, and this absolutely got this place because of personal bias, but they are very charming, and I think it is such a fun, nice collectible. I mean, again, the duck, I couldn't not give it higher marks because of that, so 4th it will take. And in joint second, we get Funko and YouTooz with 42 out of 50, with both these brands having a wide variety of figures, decent enough price, and a great resale value. But speaking of resale value, my head would say Funko is the true number 2, with resale values almost hitting thousands of pounds, and the street credibility being everyone knows what a Funko Pop is. But my heart will go to YouTooz because that niche variety and the fact the figures do look animated when they are just stationary to me, it's just, it puts it over the edge for me personally. And the memes. Who cannot love the memes? Brain rot wins, I'm afraid, and for me, that's the number 2 spot. And finally, number 1, the king of them all, it is of course the head honcho, Lego, which I admit is a little unfair, as when I was discussing Lego, I did include everything they do, which included sets and the art pieces. That might be a bit unfair, but come on, it's Lego. It transcends everything, and it's great as a minifig, it's great as sets, it's great as movies, it's great as games, it's great as a theme park, etc, etc. It deserves the number 1 spot purely just because it's Lego. And that is it for our final ranking, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even 100% happy with it. This could change easily in my books after reviewing this video a few times, as it was in the end biased as hell. I do want to finish saying though that ultimately the best collectible of all time, the one that sits above all, and the one that every collector should be purchasing right now is the one you like the most. Collecting should always be driven by personal interest and admiration rather than speculative monetary gain. I think many hobbies that were once intended to be light-hearted ways to show off something that you're interested in and just be like, hey, this is the thing I'm into and I want to show that with this physical object, has been infested by people only interested in money, which has led to shameless scalpers and scammers ruining something which at the end of the day is just a bit of fun. Nobody wants to wait 4 hours in a queue to be beaten by one scumbag scalper who has used his bots to buy the entire stock up in the first 2 minutes and then sell it back to me at 4 times the retail price. It's infested everything from trainers to concert tickets to Pokemon cards, and I think we can all agree in a really shitty times that are happening right now, sometimes yes, pathetic as it may be, me buying a piece of plastic that arrives at my front door can bring me some reprieve from the waking nightmare that is outside. So yes, my hobbyists, collectors, and all manner of nerds, focus on the items that you genuinely enjoy and make you happy. And if they're worth something at the end, that is just a huge bonus. Because if you're hoping that these things appreciate in value, you better make sure you're okay staring at them all day. Because believe you me, from experience, they start to build up quickly. So that's it. We've looked at a lot of collectible figures today, but now I want to know what you guys collect. Did I miss any that you're a massive collector of? Or is there any collector's items you want me to look at in the future? Please let me know in the comments down below and give this video a like, and if you're feeling really generous, a subscribe goes a long way for myself and means that you really enjoyed the content today, which I appreciate. Anyway, that is me. I have been the Ugly Bartender. This video has taken me far too long to make. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.